All right, welcome back to this project. This is video number 8. One of the things I want to do is I want to start with some of the details now. We've got the face roughly dimensionalized in, and now one of the things I want to do is I want to give the ear some angle. So I'm going to take this off at about a 45-degree angle and give that ear some shape down to the face. This ear is going to be a lot smaller than it is right here, but I'm a firm believer that if you leave it big, you can make it smaller later, because if you make it too small now, you certainly can't make it any bigger. You can, but boy, that's ugly when you see all these glue lines on your carving, simply because you had to glue something else in there. I've done enough of that. I've done carvings where the hands just look really tiny. I had to cut them off and had to put new hands on them or something like that, and I don't like doing that because that's just more work for me that I don't really want. Anyway, gives that ear some kind of shape. I'm going to draw that on because when we draw the ear, we get an idea of where it's going to be. So it's actually going to be somewhat like that. And that's a really big ear in reality, but we're going to cut a lot of that off anyway. And so it doesn't have to be that size, but I'm going to leave it that size because with ears, and if we draw, especially if we draw the sideburn in here, the face is going to be even narrower. But with ears, we're going to undercut this whole back side. And what we're going to do is go in at an angle and remove some of that wood that supports it right now. Because right now I could push on it and do all kinds of things and it's not going to break off. But once I undercut that at a certain angle and I push on it against that angle, that could pop off. And I've seen that happen on a lot of my carvings. So anyway, I'm just going to leave that there. That's where I want that. I'm gonna now come in, and I got to be careful, because I've got the ear and it looks like it's right in the right spot. But now I'm going to remove this and lower the face down even lower, and if I have to be careful to make sure it doesn't look like this ear is plastered on. So I'm going to grab a smaller V-tool. I had this V-tool out. Now I'm going to use a slightly smaller one because the ears on this get in there and they get in the way when you're trying to do things and it hits in stuff. And so now I'm going to draw the sideburns in, and I don't need much of a sideburn. I don't even have to have a sideburn if I don't want to, but you know, they kind of add another detail on your carving. So I just drew in a couple of sideburns, and what I'm going to do is just outline that front and bottom. Do that on both sides. Okay, so now you see how I've outlined those sideburns on both sides. Now, I'm going to take my V-tool, take my straight blade knife, and as deep as that is, I don't need a much deeper stop cut, but I'm going to stop cut both of those, then I'll shape the face down to there. And what I mean by shaping the face, I mean by now that stop cut is there, so now I can make it come over to it. And whether you do this with a fishtail gouge or what, be careful how you impact up under there, because that's the bottom of the hat. And so you got to be real careful on what you're hitting underneath that hat, because if you have a lot of stray knife cuts, you're going to have to clean them up. And as I said earlier, cleaning up can sometimes take you much longer than you want to spend on it. But what I'm doing is I'm moving that face over to where I want, because the face is essentially a diamond. If we have a center line here, your face comes out at the temples and then back in below the cheekbones. So it looks like a diamond. And so we've got to approximate that there. So whether you're using a fishtail gouge like I am right now, or a straight blade knife, we're going to do that over to the sideburns and below the jawline. So we've got some wood to take off down here. use a knife to do that. And we're starting to shape that face. See that diamond shape that we want? We're going to do the same thing over here on this other side. Except now I'm going to use this with a knife. I did that with a fishtail gouge. I'm going to do that with a knife. When you do this, make sure you know the tip of your knife is not extended over in here. Make sure you keep it right out here. And so I've got my thumb there. I know where the blade of that knife is, the tip. I'm not over in there. Got to be real careful. And so as we carve, we're reshaping that face to get that diamond shape out that we want. And you can see it coming up there. I'm going to do the same thing down here. So whichever tool you feel comfortable doing that with, the fishtail gouge, the straight blade, or a knife or tool of your choosing, that's entirely up to you. But basically what we're doing is we're nudging that face back to where we want it. This will allow us, when we finally get into carving these ears, to keep them from sticking way out so they look like they're glued on. I'm going to take off those bottom pieces of the ear. I'm still well outside of the lines that I drew. I'm still leaving plenty of wood there. Okay. Next thing I want to do now, I've got the sideburns sticking out. And so I've got them to where they're where I want them to go. Do a little bit of cleanup here. I don't like that thing sticking out there. And it's gonna, there we go. There we go. All right. Here's my center line. If you know anything about faces, you know they come to a diamond shape. If you take your fingers just like this and put your thumbs at the bottom of your ears and try to close your fingers, what you find out is that's the shape of your face. Your face has a diamond shape or a triangle shape. It shapes out that way to the nose. So out here's the nose. So what we can do is we can approximate that. So what we'll do is we're going to go in at 45-degree angles, and I don't need to take much off to start to see that face come in. Okay? Doesn't take long, and pretty soon you got that face. If you could ignore the drawings I've got all over it. Keep that diamond shape you can. But also understand, if you're going to have a big mustache out here, don't remove as much down here on this as we're doing right now. But anyway, I'm just going to keep going just so I can get that face a little narrower at the top. And you've noticed, even though we've made it narrow, the outside is still in line with the crown of the hat. Okay? I'm going to put a mustache on this guy simply because mustaches are easier to cover up the face. Mouths are kind of hard. If you've never done mouths, never done a face that has a mouth on it, it's kind of hard. But anyway, we'll learn how to do that as we go through this video. Hat's still real square. We'll take off the corners, but we want to round this down because it's not going to be square, it's going to be rounded. Well, so basically, if I were looking at where the center of that is, put that center right there, the top of the hat is going to round from that center line there to this center line. And so the brim, or the crown, I keep getting those two terms mixed up. Crown's going to look roughly like that. In other words, draw it with a black line so we can see it. This comes way out here. We can make that narrower if we want. We just have to make the head accordingly narrow. And there's the top of the hat. So that allows us to go back in here with a straight blade knife and round that. Do the same thing to the front. Also know that a lot of this is going to come out anyway, so I'm not real worried about what it looks like right now. We're going to, as we trim the brim of the hat, we're going to take some of that off. But now look at what we're doing. We're moving that back here, and so now we're going to be able to move the face back as well. We're still leaving the front because that's what we lined up. And so we're going to leave that to the front so that we get that in line with the front of the head. Okay, so we're kind of getting that hat looking like we want it, except I want that back to be angled, that front to be angled back. I'm going to take this a little bit off, not off the bottom, but right above the bottom, which means I'm not going way down here. I'm going up here towards the top of it, front top. So we round that hat out a little bit, and we get an idea of what that looks like. But if we draw that, and we draw the front of this hat, and we try to draw that in a straight line with the front of this, this is where the front forehead is going to be, right here. So the front forehead is going to be right here, which means we're going to have an eyebrow, and we're going to have a nose, and we're going to have a mouth, and we're going to angle this eyebrow back into here. I'm going to angle the eyebrow back into there. So basically the head's going to look like that. Come way out here to a big nose. I like big noses. And then there's the chin. So we're moving that back. If you get an idea of what I'm trying to do, we're going to move this back, and it'll allow us to round that hat, round the hat, round the hat. Got an idea of where we're going to go now? Good. We want to spend some time starting to round these hard edges because it's given us I don't know what the word is looking for. It gives us an unnatural look. And so what I'm going to do is I just want to take off these corners. I've deliberately not done any of that to this point, simply because we make changes on the fly whenever we're doing a carving, because the wood sometimes dictates to you what you're going to do. You sometimes are not in charge. You know, there's an old saying about good carvers knowing how to recognize their mistakes and great carvers knowing how to fix them or recognize their issues. And that's what I want you to focus on, is if that's an issue, if that's something you need to worry about, how are you going to fix it? How are you going to mitigate that? Because it's not the easiest thing to do to see that you've made a design error, a drawing error, whatever. How are you going to fix that? That's the key thing. So basically what I'm doing is just trying to get some roundness to it. I talked about roundness earlier. I don't want to get into adding details until I'm at the point where I've got some roundness to it. And by now, starting to see that. Got some roundness up here that needs to take place up under that hat, but I still haven't shaped under the brim of that hat, and I haven't done a whole lot just yet. But that's where we're going to be here in just a little bit. We're starting to get some shape that we want. We're starting to get some details in there that we want, starting to get where we're going. We're taking 7 videos, well 5 of carving, 7 total when we lay it out. But that's where we're at. And we've done all of this with these tools right here. Other than the drill, we've done all of this with a fishtail gouge, a V-tool, and a straight knife. And we've gotten to where we've looking like a little fat cowboy, looking like a little fat guy, but we're getting there. All right, this is the end of video 7. We'll pick it up in video 8, and we'll see how far we get on that one. Talk to you later.